right, so everything I've ever made that's like Kenyan that my aunt taught me to make, or my mom, is eyeballed. So I just like, if I've got this much tomato, I'll just do this much onion and this much. So we'll base it off of the amount of kale.
All right. So, Kemi, I've known you for a year now.
Yeah.
You're born in New Jersey, yes?
I was born in Livingston, New Jersey, but I grew up in Union, New Jersey, which is really close to New York, actually. I'm an only child, and I was raised by my mother.
Okay.
And also her sisters, my aunts.
Okay. How many sisters does she have?
She has 4 sisters. My mom was born in Embu, Kenya.
Okay.
And she and her siblings, or she and her sisters, immigrated to the U.S. in the 80s.
So, growing up, was food an important part of your family?
I definitely think it was. And it's funny because half of the time it was about Kenyan food, and the other half it was about whatever I would eat, because I'm a very picky eater.
Okay.
So it's a lot of chicken nuggets and spaghetti and meat sauce and that kind of thing. But then my mom really enjoys cooking, so a lot of like beef stew, and my aunt makes really good chapati.
So tell us about what we're gonna make today.
So this dish is called Sukuma Wiki. It's just braised greens. It doesn't actually have to be kale. In Kenya, they use spinach, kale, collard greens. But it's basically just greens simmered for a while, and you can make them as well done as you want. I like it all different ways, and this dish is like super customizable to make it whatever you want. We're making kind of a simple version of it.
So why did you choose this recipe?
So a Kenyan just won the New York City Marathon. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was her 4th time winning or something wild like that.
Crazy.
In America, we'd probably call them superfoods, but they're just like staples. And this is one of those staples that everyone eats because it's cheap. I just like it because it's healthy. It's vegan, which is hard to come by, I think, in America, because we love our meat and cheese. I like to make a big batch of it, like over the weekend when I was living alone, and just eat it throughout the week because it's tasty and healthy and it fills you up.
It's onion, tomato, and kale.
Oil for frying. For spices, you can use whatever you want, really. We're going to use curry powder, which is just run-of-the-mill curry powder. So Sukuma Wiki means to stretch the week.
Okay.
So like I said, it's super cheap. So families will use this dish to stretch out more expensive ingredients like meat and oil and stuff like that.
What we might call here like a rent week meal.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Although I don't know how cheap is kale here.
It's not super cheap.
Yeah, so I guess depending on.
I think like plain lettuce is cheaper.
Yeah, which is not.
There's no nutritional value in that.
There's nothing going on there. But.
Yeah. Do you have any particular memories of eating this food at home, or your mom cooking it, or any of your aunts?
Not at home in the States, but I go to Kenya pretty often because my mom is there. She moved back when I was in high school. So when I go there, it's common in Kenya to have a cook. Even if you're middle class, it's like that's a thing that people do. So when I'm there, the cook knows that I love Sukuma Wiki. So it's like all I eat the whole time in Kenya. Like right now I'm just imagining, usually when I visit, I just kind of stay at home and wait for my mom to get home from work. And I just eat Sukuma Wiki and watch TV, which is amazing.
That sounds incredible. Okay, so what's next?
We can start frying onions, letting them cook down a bit, and then we'll add the kale and the tomato and spices and some water.
Wait, you said onion first?
Yeah. Okay. I love onions. And you know how people are always like, it smells so good in here. What are you making? It's like, usually it's just the onion that smells so good. That's all you have to do to convince someone that you're making something good.
Yes.
So in Kenya, we have this wooden spoon. It looks kind of like this, except it's flat, and it's really like a stick that's carved to be kind of round like this, and just flat, and we call it a moiko. And it's an iconic like, Kenya. When I think of my aunt cooking, I think of like her with a moiko in a big pot.
What makes it so iconic?
I guess because everyone has one, and I think every household has like their moiko. So I could recognize my my aunt's Waco out of a batch of wooden spoons, probably. Okay. I think we can add everything. It really, it's like, this recipe is so, just whatever, it's fine. The thing with this is that everyone has their own way of doing it. So now I'm imagining in my head what my aunt would be saying right now if she were watching me cook this. She'd be like, you should have put that first and then... It's all the same thing. It's like, it's fine.
What's going in your head right now? What would she say?
She would say that she would have put I think she would have put this stuff in before the kale and everything, like to mix it with the onions as they were cooking. I'm actually getting kind of hungry watching this happen.
Yes. It smells so good.
I haven't made it in a while because I've been living with my aunt.
So she just
cooks everything. No, we can use more of this.
Do you tend to cook Kenyan food when you're cooking on your own?
Yeah. It's more, maybe like 70-30. Because I love learning how to cook new things.
Yeah.
But I love Kenyan food. So I'd much rather just like stick with what I know because it's so good.
It's so healthy too. And it's a lot of foods that's so popular right now. And you're just doing family recipes that you love.
Yeah.
But happen to be trendy right now.
For sure. Like this is like gluten-free and like vegan and probably what's that paleo. It's just veggies.
Yeah.
I guess the oil, you're not allowed to have oil or something, right?
Right, but a Whole30 you can.
Oh.
So it'd be Whole30 friendly.
Whole30. It's interesting, there's been a lot of articles about diseases having to do with diet in Africa in general, but specifically they had a story about Kenya, and they interviewed a bunch of doctors who have had to treat diabetes for like the first time because of this influx of Western food, basically. So now there's KFC in Kenya, Cold Stone Creamery in Kenya, and I'm like, Subway in Kenya. I'm like, we don't want it. I don't want it there. They do actually because it's a status thing. Mm-hmm. If you can afford KFC, then like you're doing well. But what the doctor said is that you should be eating this stuff. Basically, it's like the stuff you were eating when you were poor is good for you. So there's a rise in obesity and other things that have to do with diet, specifically because of this influx of foods that like I don't want to be there. Ooh, it changed color, did it? Or
yeah, it did a little bit.
Yeah, I like it. I like my greens a little bit more cooked. And I chopped up the whole leaf, so you'll see some stem in there.
I noticed that.
I like that for texture. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of mushy leaves.
Oh, that's true.
But I keep all the stems in. And look, there you go, food waste. No food waste.
Right.
We ate the whole thing.
I've got onion, but I'm going to compost it.
Yeah.
How is your identity affected by your mom being an immigrant, by growing up in, like, surrounded by Kenyan culture, but in New Jersey or in the U.S.?
I think the main tension in my life is when people look at me, it's not immediately obvious that my parents are immigrants. Just the way it's not immediately obvious for anyone, really.
Yeah.
I think people sometimes assume that like my ancestors lived in America for a long time, and it's just not the right story. It's very important to me, like if someone were to ask me like what's like one thing that influenced your life or anything, it's like my parents came over from different countries to come here specifically.
Yeah, my dad immigrated here from the U.S., from Holland, and I can relate a little bit in the fact of like wanting to say, wait, like my family isn't just from here, like we've been here the whole time, because there's a cultural identity, and there's also just a being proud of the other culture and like wanting to, like you said, you know where you came from, and getting to be a part of that. And I think that's really cool. You get to go back so often.
For sure. This looks so good. I'm hungry.
I'm gonna take a taste.
Oh my god, yeah.
This is one part I always forget to taste food as I
go.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally see just making a giant batch of it.
And then you just add it with whatever else you're eating.
Yeah.
This is really good with chapati. So the way I eat it, you just pinch off a piece and like little mini tacos in every bite.
Mini tacos, I love that.
That's my go-to.
Doesn't get much better.
Yeah.
And Kenya's beautiful.
Oh my gosh. I should send you some pictures of the view from my grandmother's house. She chose that place because of the view. But it kind of like, you can see so far. So beautiful. There's mango trees everywhere. Like, you could just pick a mango and eat it for, yeah. It's like that. Yeah.
I can't even find an equivalent in the US. Not at all. Now, we get to cook!
Yes.
Indonesian. This is not vegetarian or vegan or
Totally
anything.
fine. I think balance is the key to all of life.
Yes, so it actually pairs very nicely with your dish.
Perfect.
Because we have all our veggies and
Now we get
now we get to go the other way.
animal products.
We get some of our protein in. So we started with rice, so I got that going on. And then we're gonna start with bacon. So just like we started with onion last time, make it smell good. This is a recipe that I've watched my dad make a million times. And so kind of like you said, like growing up you watched your mom making the foods and so like you were familiar. I had this thing because I watched my dad do it a million times and I was like, I can make it. And then I go, actually, I don't know how to cook.
Right.
Like I had to learn how to do these things that I kind of observed and saw. So it's 2 leeks, half an onion, and a bunch of shallots. I'm only gonna put half of it right now. And this is even like, again, my dad's made this so many times. So
like he doesn't need it.
he doesn't need it. So when I kind of followed the ingredients, I was like, this isn't what you do.
Can I stir this? It looks so
Yeah.
good. Wow, I'm so curious about this Indonesian Dutch connection.
Yeah, I hadn't really even thought about it.
When did you know about that? Because I didn't know about the Kenyan Indian thing until like college or something. I don't know why I never bothered to ask, like, why do we have curry stuff? Or chapati is like a very Indian thing.
I think I just assumed like Dutch East India Company. Like you learn all about it in school, and I was like, okay, yeah, I've heard about it. Great. We got spices, and the food came with it. Fine. It actually wasn't until last year where I had to write a paper for food writing, and it was like,
was that one of your papers?
I also learned that like nothing's written in English about it. Really, what is like in Dutch, and even that's very little. And there was one guy who is Indo-Dutch. And his family's owned a restaurant forever in Holland, and he's moved to LA, and he now has like a recipe or two. He was doing actually a cooking seminar in New York while I was doing the thing, but it was like it had just happened when I learned about it, and I was like, fine.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. He just had this rich history and was able to trace it all the way back to his Indonesian grandparents or great-grandparents and how they immigrated to Holland. And so like I got the whole history through that, which was cool because I just didn't realize. And even talking to my grandfather, like, he didn't really know. Like, again, Dutch East India Company.
Yeah, and then even with the Kenyan thing, it's like Britain, like, was colonizing both countries, so they were like, yeah, why don't you just go over there, like, build a railroad. Yeah, but now Kenyans have chapati. Not to say that that's like, okay, that makes up for it, but it's just interesting how this whole world even comes to be. Like the fact that you have this dish, that we're cooking this dish right now, and it's part of your story is, I love food history.
And ironically, in New York City, which was originally New
Oh
Amsterdam.
my gosh.
Well, and that's actually something that's so fascinating about being in New York and wanting to find out more about the Dutch colony of New York City. Yeah. And there's just not much. Like, they came, and then they were pushed out.
Right.
And like a lot of the schools, other than like Columbia, has one department that's focused on Dutch cultural studies.
Really?
And everything else is like, I don't know. I just feel like even in learning about the history, they're like, oh, well, the Dutch started here first, but it was like inconsequential. Yeah. So this is kind of cool. Which this is the part I don't remember my dad doing. But you push everything to the side. Oh. And then you put the egg in. So you want to crack the eggs?
Let me do one at a time so I don't.
You can't do the one hand crack.
You know, I used to be able to.
Oh man.
No, I cannot. Ooh, these farm fresh. Yep. Actually, yeah. That's I could tell. I guess this makes sense. Yeah, it's like a stir fry. Right?
Yeah. Just with more stuff in it.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. That you're known to have sprinkles on their toast.
Sprinkles.
Yeah,
like
the
ice cream.
hoggle. Yeah, no, not.
What is it?
I'm just gonna show you. It's I don't know, hoggle. I can't pronounce it, but yeah,
Chocolate sprinkles.
you put it on your toast or your biscuits, and it's amazing. Like, I love sprinkles, and I'm like, I get to have this for breakfast. And there's a pure sugar version in like pink.
Mm-hmm.
Love that too.
What is of chocolate?
Yeah, so it's just.
Oh, it's actual chocolate?
Yeah, taste them, and they're so good. They don't taste like the American Jimmy's or chocolate sprinkles.
Oh, it's like chocolate.
It's like chocolate. And then while it's hot, the chocolate melts.
So it's like Nutella, really.
Kind of. Except without the hazelnut
yeah.
and, yeah.
Palm oil, hopefully, is not
I don't
probably
think
in there.
so.
Would you say that the things that you're most excited about, like Dutch food, are the ones that are influenced by Indonesian, that relationship?
Probably, yeah. Because the other thing that we always had with this was krupuk, which is shrimp chips. That you, these little things that you then fry. And
they chop up?
Yeah.
Oh, like we were talking. You
Yeah.
saw them in the store, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's why I wanted to learn more about, like, why?
Mhm.
Like, why do Dutch claim this as, like, their home food?
Right.
Except it's not theirs.
Imported.
Yeah, and it's, but it just becomes, I guess because their food is
Yeah.
lackluster, and this is the thing that you do go to.
Right.
And it's, I mean, the Dutch have the cheese and the sprinkles, so it's like I'm proud of that too.
I mean, the cheese is good stuff.
Yeah, the howda is so good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about appropriation and like claiming other foods' cultures, but then there's also, I just wrote a midterm paper on how different beverages were forces of colonization. Like the Greeks and Etruscans basically loved wine and thought it was the superior beverage.
Yeah.
And then looked at all the beer drinking people and was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, no. So they took wine purposely to other places and planted vineyards. To be able to expand their trade and not have to like bring wine with them, but just grow it there and then sell it to the locals, which they then took their land and all that. But it was out of like, we think this is really great, and we think you should have it too. And so, I don't know. I think there's some ways like the chapati. Yeah, it started Indian, but there's now a version. It's different, and now it's Kenyan, like that.
So is like the Indo-Dutch cuisine, would an Indonesian person from Indonesia like recognize it? It's completely different.
Yep.
Okay.
And actually, I've looked at Indonesian restaurants here, and a lot of them don't have the foods I'm familiar with, because they're not Indo-Dutch.
So
they're
Indo-Dutch
just
is a
Indonesian.
specific thing.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I think that's what I was curious about.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like how Chinese food is here. Like, Chinese people go,
Right.
that's
it's
not
like,
Chinese
that's
food.
not really. Yeah.
It's almost time to eat. So, let's dish some of this up.
I'm so excited. I have no idea. I feel like my life is about to be changed.
I made a mistake and I didn't taste test, so hopefully it's good.
I would say it's good. Is that about what you were going for? Because it tastes good to me.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, one conversation, I think in the last few years I've been learning more about the topic of race, power, privilege, and difference. In this day and age, with race being an important topic and more people are talking about it, that I think that there's more encouragement and empowerment to embrace the difference, embrace the conversations, and to talk about our differences in a good light,
Right.
instead of belittling or making people feel guilty. But it's still a hard thing. Like, I'm so afraid of talking to other people about cultural things that I might like put my foot in my mouth or like say something offensive or like embarrass myself of my own ignorance. But it's been, I think I've learned that you just have to go for it and to ask and see what happens, and then just hopefully then that person just gives you grace of like, hey, at least they're asking me.
Right.
And maybe the good things will come out of it. But I think that's another reason why I was excited about doing a show like this. It's like, I want to show that people have more in common than we think, and that it's good to talk about differences and to celebrate those differences. But I was curious, just like as a woman of color, how this change of like actually speaking about differences and celebrating and being aware. What is this topic to you, and how does it feel to you when people want to engage in differences and want to ask about your cultural background or your experience?
I think a lot about the difference between ethnicity and race, just because race is explicitly about power and the differences between like races, and especially in this country. But when you bring it to food, especially when it's like immigrant food, it's, I guess, easier for me to shift it over to ethnicity, and it's more about your cultural background and like we were talking about being grounded in a place and knowing where you're coming from. From there, you can move on to race and everything else. But like, yeah, I'm a Black woman, but I'm also specifically Kenyan, specifically Kiambu, on my mom's side, and then on the dad's side, Nigerian, specifically Yoruba. And then, right, finding the parallels between people, even though they're different. Like, the Kenyan story isn't the same as the Netherlands story, but they're related. And like we said, we just found like a bunch of parallels.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome.
Food is a equalizing force, and within it, it's then differentiates people.
Equalizing in its ability to, allow everyone to like have a say in.
Yeah.
Because everyone's got food. Yeah.
And even I said, like, there's some people that are like, oh, I hate food. I was like, well, there you go.
Well, that's your thing.
Yeah.
So tell us
So
about
already,
that.
And even like those who don't have enough to eat, like that's their story.
Right.
And so around food, we all have a place at the table. Thanks for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for eating with me.
Yeah, like.